Hello, and thank you for joining me here on my channel, Spirit Rodeo. Today, I am going to be talking about soul retrieval. I'm going to get into Sandra Ingerman, who is a shaman, a shamanic healer. I'm going to read a bit about her definition of soul retrieval, since she is the more practiced and experienced person who can better put these things into words. As for myself, I experienced a soul retrieval back in December of 2021, and I decided to do this because I was put on a path of healing, and I realized that something pretty traumatic that had happened to me around the year 2009, 2010 was still weighing me down in the year 2021. And it was a very traumatic experience with a person that I came to understand was a narcissist, is a narcissist. And so, some things resurfaced in my life that kind of followed me from that time into the year 2021 in a way that I didn't expect. And I was having some spiritual experiences and spiritual insight into that situation that I didn't expect to have at that point. So I spoke with an intuitive reader for the first time, and she helped me by providing some insight into that situation. And she also mentioned to me that I needed to heal from the situation. So I understood that I'd kind of felt like I'd changed in a way that I wasn't quite myself in some ways after that traumatic situation, and that I felt deeply wounded about it and by it. And so soul ties was a concept that I'd been introduced to through church. And when I started doing some soul searching and tried to understand some spiritual topics in ways that I hadn't been made to understand through church, I came upon the concept of soul retrieval. So I found a young lady online who offered soul retrievals, or sessions, I should say. And I'd done some research through messaging back and forth with several people who offered this service. And I decided to go with a particular young lady. And I'm going to make some more videos over my spiritual experiences around the soul retrieval session, the things that happened to me after, because this point in time really opened my eyes to spiritual concepts that I had no idea existed. So to recap briefly, the soul retrieval that I had in December 2021, it happened over the course of 2 sessions that were about a week apart from each other. And the practitioner or facilitator, I met with her online through video chat, and I was alone in a quiet place in my house, and she led the way through the sessions. And I think the process goes in which I think that she first removes like any spiritual entities that might be attached, which was a new concept for me. Then I believe that she removed soul fragments that were attached to me spiritually that were from other people. And this can happen through traumatic experiences that you encounter with other people. They can project their soul fragments onto you. So then in the next session, she went to gather my soul fragments that either had been taken from me by other people, or maybe I had unknowingly given to other people throughout different points in my life. So the soul retrieval sessions turned out to be not just about me overcoming that particular traumatic relationship from 2009, 2010, but also some other parts of myself from my childhood, from my very early 20s, and even some more recent things that had happened to me in the years 2019 and 2020. So, like I said, I'll go into more details about that through another video, but for now, I'm going to get into a bit of what Sandra Ingerman shares about what a shaman is, and about what soul loss and soul retrieval is. Okay, so a shaman is a man or woman who interacts directly with spirits to address the spiritual aspects of illness, performs soul retrievals, divine information, helps the spirits of deceased people cross over, and performs a variety of ceremonies for the community. Shamans have taken on many roles in tribal communities. They have acted as healers, doctors, priests, psychotherapists, mystics, and storytellers. Shamans look at the spiritual form of illness, which might manifest on an emotional or physical level. She found that most shamanic cultures around the world believe that illness is due to the loss of the soul. It is believed that whenever we suffer an emotional or physical trauma, a piece of our soul flees the body in order to survive the experience. The definition of soul that I am using is The definition of soul that I'm using is our essence, life force, the part of our vitality that keeps us alive and thriving. The types of trauma that could cause soul loss in our culture would be any kind of abuse, sexual, physical, or emotional. Other causes could be an accident, being in a war, being a victim of a terrorist act, acting against our morals, being in a natural disaster, surgery, addictions, divorce, or death of a loved one. Any event that causes shock could cause soul loss. And what might cause soul loss in one person might not cause soul loss in another. Shamans believe that alarm clocks can cause soul loss. I think we all know what they mean. It is important to understand that soul loss is a good thing that happens to us. It is how we survive pain. If I was going to be in a head-on car collision, the last place that I would want to be at the point of impact is in my body. My psyche could not endure that kind of pain. So our psyches have this brilliant self-protect mechanism where a part of our essence or soul leaves the body so that we do not feel the full impact of the pain. In psychology, we talk about this as disassociation. But in psychology, we don't talk about what disassociates and where the part goes. In shamanism, we know that a piece of the soul leaves the body and goes into a territory in what shamans call non-ordinary reality, where it waits until someone intervenes in the spiritual realms and facilitates its return. Although soul loss is a survival mechanism, the problem from a shamanic point of view is that the soul part that left usually does not come back on its own. The soul might be lost or stolen by another person, or doesn't know that the trauma has passed and it is safe to return. It has always been the role of the shaman to go into an altered state of consciousness and track down where the soul fled to in the alternate realities and return it to the body of the client. There are many common symptoms of soul loss. Some of the more common ones would be dissociation, where a person does not feel fully in his or her body and alive and fully engaged in life. Other symptoms include chronic depression, suicidal tendencies, post-traumatic stress syndrome, immune deficiency problems, and grief that just does not heal. Addictions are also a sign of soul loss, as we seek external sources to fill up the empty spaces inside of us, whether through substances, food, relationships, work, or buying material objects. Anytime someone says, "I've never been the same since a certain event," and they don't mean this in a good way, soul loss has probably occurred. You can really see how much soul loss there is today as we put money over life. Anytime someone says that we have to kill other life forms for material gain, that person must be suffering from soul loss. Anytime someone feels that buying one more car or that gathering material objects will bring happiness, that person is suffering from the loss of soul. As you can see, we're looking at a great deal of planetary soul loss today as you watch how we behave towards each other and the rest of life. It is interesting to note that as soul loss was so understood in shamanic cultures, people who suffered traumas were given a soul retrieval within 3 days after a trauma occurred. Today, as we have not been practicing soul retrieval, modern day practitioners are going back 10, 20, 30, or 40 years even, or even more for lost soul parts, as I explained. There were parts of me that got lost when I was a child, and the practitioner was able to go back in time and find those parts of myself and return those parts of my soul to me. Also, in a shamanic culture, the individuals knew what was out of balance in their lives that might have caused an illness or issue to occur. In our culture, we are unaware of what is out of spiritual harmony that is creating illness. And because often our soul loss happens so young, we are unaware of the unconscious patterns we're living out due to our first soul loss. We are always trying to retrieve our soul. And how we do this is by repeating the same trauma over and over again. The names might change of the people involved in our life story, but the story is often the same. The effects of having a soul retrieval vary from person to person. Some people feel that they are more grounded in their body and feel more solid. Some people feel lighter, and a joyful way of being returns to them. For some, memories of the past traumas might be triggered, bringing up a variety of feelings that must be worked through. And for some people, the effects are too subtle to notice a change until further work to integrate the soul is done. When we are numb, we might be aware that things in the world are not right, but we can easily distract ourselves from feeling a need to change. When we are fully inspirited, there is no place to retreat to, and we are more inspired to change our lives. I believe that once a person has his or her soul brought back, the client now has to do some work. If the person has done a lot of personal work, the soul retrieval might be the end of the work. If not, the soul retrieval would be the beginning of the work. Now it is up to the client to look at how to create a healthy lifestyle and attract healthy relationships that will support wholeness and a life filled with healing. How do we want to use the energy that was returned from the soul retrieval and our returned vitality to create a positive present and future for ourselves? And how do we bring passion and meaning back into our lives again so that we thrive instead of just survive? All these issues I call life after healing and are crucial to create long-term healing after a soul retrieval. So that last part, creating a healthy lifestyle after the soul retrieval and creating a life filled with healing. I felt like after my soul retrieval, I didn't understand how to integrate the parts of myself that came back, and I still don't. And the person that facilitated my soul retrieval wasn't a specialist in this. And so I still really... People who charge for these types of services usually charge a whole lot of money. And I just hadn't found anyone with reasonable rates to help me through something like the reintegration of the soul fragments that came back to me. But I think in some ways I've worked through a lot of, and I am working through a lot of things on my own. And I'm encountering people along the way that I didn't expect that are helping me in different ways as well. So I'm going to wrap up this talk about soul loss and soul retrieval for now. And I will be back with a more detailed discussion of what actually happened during my soul retrieval and the after effects of the soul retrieval as well. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you can join me next time here on Spirit Rodeo.